Distant shoplifter, Billy.
Well, I think that's when what we do is we adopt a harsher system. If you're caught doing it again, off you go for a couple of years.
To prison. See, that's where I disagree with you. I feel I'm not soft on this stuff at all. I think people need to be punished and punished harshly. I just think we need to be a little bit more inventive and creative by being punished harshly, because at the moment we sort of take the assumption that the only way you can punish somebody really is by locking them up. And I think it's not beyond the realms of our capabilities to find ways to punish people which make them suffer and are a deterrent and are not easy, but don't involve putting people who don't pose any direct threat to anybody behind bars to the cost of millions of pounds a year to the taxpayer.
I mean, do we not potentially consider going back to more traditional methods where we actually name and shame, where we actually, if you've committed a crime, maybe if you are a multiple-time offender, okay, we're going to tag you on the first offence, but actually, if you do it again, we're going to put you in a high-vis jacket, you're going to go out and do some litter picking, you're still going to be tagged, and everyone can look at you, and they can actually go, well, you're a shoplifter, you're a criminal.
And you can have a big jacket here, you could wear a big hat that says shoplifter. I'm being serious here, Billy. I think public shaming is... I don't have a problem with it. If you don't want to be publicly shamed as a shoplifter, don't shoplift. That simple. So I think you're right. And people say you can't do that. It's humiliating. Punishment needs to be a big part of this. But we've got to get away from the idea, in my view, that punishment means prison, because that's too expensive and it's just not sustainable. We've got to find other ways to punish people who commit crimes, while at the same time, as Jason was talking about, making sure they don't reoffend as well. Billy, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for ringing in. What do you think? Do we need to accept that we're putting too many criminals in prison? And if it's not prison, it's not custodial sentences that are the answer, then what would you do instead? 03456060 Talk more about that in just a moment. And
we are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government, as you know. A fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions will really crippling, very powerful.
Donald Trump concludes the second day of his Middle East tour, including a meeting with the Syrian president, the first between the leaders of those two countries in 25 years. You might be slightly surprised by Donald Trump's assessment of the new Syrian president. Tell you more about that after the news headlines with James Kitchen.
The Justice Secretary's promised record prison expansion, with work to build 3 new jails starting this year. It's been warned they're running at 99% capacity in spaces for male inmates, and Wales will hit 0 by November. A man suspected of a double stabbing has been shot by armed police in Highton near Liverpool. The suspect has been taken to hospital, as have the man and woman who were assaulted. They're in a serious but unstable condition. Now, Vladimir Putin's announced he won't be travelling in the Russian delegation to Turkey for peace talks with Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has previously said he would meet the Russian president in person if he agreed. LBC weather dry tonight with clear spells and lows of 4 degrees.
LBC, Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Tomorrow morning with Nick Ferrari at breakfast, the government admits that prisons are on the verge of collapse, with jails set to be full within months. Plus, what is the true state of the UK economy? Nick will reveal the brand new GDP figures. And after yet another row concerning Gary Lineker, has that presenter become bigger than the BBC? All that and more coming up with Nick Ferrari at breakfast tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, here on LBC.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Let's get straight down to business. If you need office furniture, you need Andrews Office Furniture. For over 50 years, Andrews have been supplying London offices big and small with new and second-hand office furniture. We can offer a complete design service, free installation and next-day delivery within the M25. Call into the Andrews Office Furniture showrooms in Bond Street or Crestwood. Visit andrewsofficefurniture.com online. Get 5% off your first order using the promo code RADIO. T's and C's apply.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900. Couldn't bought our dream home without help and support.
process isn't just about finding the right rate, it's about trust. With access to thousands of mortgage products, you can trust MB Associates to find the perfect solution for you. No stress, just expert guidance all the way. Visit mbassociates.net/mortgage. There may be a fee for mortgage advice up to 1%, but a typical fee is $495. The amount you pay will depend on your circumstances.
Leading Britain's conversation. Ben Kentish. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
At 10:36 is the time. Mayor says more use of community service, cleaning rubbish on motorway verges and graffiti cleaning, etc. And Roxanne says have non-violent criminals do the nasty jobs that no one else wants to do. For example, clean the sewers full-time, 6 days a week for the next 2 years for free. I bet they would think twice about offending again. Roxanne, you put a laughing emoji on that. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. This is the sort of stuff that we've got to start thinking about. People need to be punished. How do we do that without taxpayers putting a foot in the bill to the extent that we all are now? Because we're just sending more and more people to prison. And also, let's put this out there. You commit a non-violent crime and the option is 2 months in jail or 2 years cleaning sewers 6 days a week for free. I'd take the 2 months. So is there a case that actually some of the non-custodial punishments might even be more of a punishment and more of a deterrent than sending someone to prison for 6 weeks? Roxanne, thank you. More of your calls to come on that in just a moment. Firstly, let's just reflect on global matters. Donald Trump wrapping up the second day of a major Middle East tour today, including a meeting with the new Syrian president, a man who was formerly on the US wanted list, a former Al-Qaeda terrorist, who is now the new president of Syria. Ahmad al-Shara is his name. Donald Trump meeting him and seemingly being quite impressed. Let's talk to Hassan Ibrahim, editor-in-chief of the Global Arab Network. Hassan, great to have you with us on the programme. Let's just start with the significance of that meeting between Donald Trump and Ahmad al-Shara, the new Syrian president, this evening, and Donald Trump's reflections on a man who was a US enemy until quite recently.
Exactly, Ahmad al-Shara, he was, wanted everywhere around the world, member of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and so on, and become, due to a gap of vacuum in power in Syria, and he found everyone, supporting him to get rid of Assad. I think that what happened is, after 15 years of war, fighting, civil war in Syria to get rid of Assad, and no one was able to have people supporting him to get to that stage. I think he became a de facto president more than he is like a normal president, like anywhere in the world where people vote for him, or a democratic process, or any sort of normal technical way of having someone a president. I think the Americans, they trying to be pragmatic. They think wisely this time. They don't want to repeat the mistakes in Afghanistan or in Iraq and stay 3 years more. They want to tell this man, you are a good man, do a good job. They are trying to push him to become a good man. He's known to everyone, but the American, the Middle East, the Arab countries, and GCC countries, they want him to behave as a leader and to deliver.
And Donald Trump describing Ahmad al-Shara after the meeting as a young, attractive guy.
This is a Trump way. He likes to send love messages to everyone, and he likes to receive as well. So I think he wants to tell to Ahmad al-Shara, look, we are not considering you an enemy. We want you to behave as a strong leader, as a leader that cooperate with us, be away from Iran, cooperate with us when it comes to Russia, and deal with us as a leader that can be recognized with the time. The American left the sanctions thanks to the Saudi and to many Arab countries participated a strong role in that. The UAE, the Qatar, and many other countries played a strong role in pushing the American to lift the sanction, at least symbolically.
Yes.
At this moment.
He's done that. Yeah. Some suggestion, Sam, that the reason that he is lifting US sanctions on Syria is because the Syrian leadership has now said it wants to normalise relations with Israel. How big a step would that be?
I think the issue is not from the Syrian. I think the Syrians, they were ready, even from the first day they want to normalize with the Israeli. I think the Syrians are fed up from Iran and these kind of radical militia that they want to just fight for a fight with Israel. The Syrian people want normalization with Israel, and the new leader realized that the Syrian people don't have an issue with Israel, and he want to capitalize on that politically. He want to sell it to the West to tell them, look, we are a normal state that want to join the West in having good relation with Israel and with the rest of the world.
It is. I mean, when just listening to you, it's an incredible transformation for a man who not long ago, well, a reasonable time ago, but not that long, was a member of Al-Qaeda.
It's correct. Yeah, it is correct. I think the issue what happened that the war lasted very long and used all the cards, burned every figure appeared in this war. No one managed to last to the end. And I think it's the personality of Ahmad al-Shari is very pragmatic. He does not believe in every stage he went through, whether it's ISIS, Al-Qaeda. His aim was to reach the bottom. So he was willing to change. He was willing to give up on many individuals were around him and want to move forward. And I think as well the Arab countries played an essential role when they noticed that if we don't take this opportunity and try to reshape Syria rather than leaving it to a known destiny, so everyone was, I can say, positively taking action in Syria, and as well UK, European countries. We've seen Ahmad Shari in Paris, and we've seen many Arab and international leaders getting involved in Syria, and they want to see Syria in that place.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Hassan Ibrahim, Editor-in-Chief of the Global Arab Network. We'll talk lots more about Israel and the situation in Gaza in particular after 11 o'clock. 10:43 the time for now. Back to you, calls about prisons. Are we putting too many people inside them? And if not, if so, how should we be punishing people instead? If not, are you really happy to see another £5 billion of your taxes go to build 3 new prisons just to lock more people up? When almost a fifth of men behind bars are there for things like drug offences? Is there not more innovative and less costly ways that we can find to punish those people? I think so. Nick's in Vancouver this evening. Nick.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
40-odd years working in appropriate correctional, mostly with you. And I can tell you now, the thing that's done the best good here in Canada is legalising marijuana. Just legalise marijuana. That's 20% of your offences gone right there and then. Well, most of the money people, criminal gangs gone.
I don't actually look for a figure on this, but I wonder, well, when I say I wonder, I mean I dread to think how much of taxpayers' money is being spent right now on keeping people in prison who are only there because they are growing or selling or using a substance that the vast majority of the Western world is quickly moving towards decriminalising.
Yes, it's going to happen. I tell you now, I was working in a youth testing centre as a race worker back in the 90s. We had about 150 kids, maybe 300 across the province. This is British Columbia. Right now, there are 20 kids in that jail. That's how much legalising marijuana has cut the legs out from under the criminal gang.
And we're really out on a limb in the UK because most of Europe, or much of Europe, is now moving towards decriminalisation. More and more US states are, other parts of the world are as well. Then in the UK, we're actually toughening up on it.
It's inevitably going to happen. It's going to inevitably happen everywhere. Because the reality is, it's no more or less harmful. I mean, I certainly would encourage people in prosecutors to smoke weed, but I know they're going to. In the same way, back in the 1980s, when people would say, well, in a group of people, we're going to drink and go to the lager. It's no worse than alcohol.
I think it's a very strong basis for cannabis. Am I happy with my taxes? that's a key part, isn't it? How much is the prison crisis being fueled by a war on drugs that has spectacularly failed? Other countries now long ago woken up to the fact that the war on drugs has failed. In this country, we take the ostrich. We just stick behind this insist that it's working, and we'll just keep helping. Why? To what end? And is that really something that you are happy to see your taxes spent on? 03456060973, the number looks like it wants to come just after this 10:26.
What if you could have the news your way?
What if you could organise the news to prioritise your interests?
Combine breaking news with analysis and opinion to get the whole picture through award-winning reporting, both on air and in your hand. The all-new LBC app.
Breaking news.
You're listening to LBC at News Breaking this hour.
Biggest stories of the day. Golden age of America begins right now.
The most informed debate. This government will not sit back and just hope.
Delivered in your hands the way you want it.
We are two peoples whose stories are deeply intertwined. Your news, just the way you want it.
Who's playing political football now?
News your way, now in your hand. The all-new LBC app. Download it for free from the App Store.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, love. You spoke to Zara from St James's Place.
Financial advisor?
Yeah, we've made a plan. Retire early, travel. Peru first.
Ooh, promise, Dad.
Bless you. And Zara's plan means I can help more with your house deposit.
Thanks again, Dad.
Planning for the future calls for invaluable advice. Visit St James's Place to find your one-to-one financial advisor. St James's Place Wealth Management plc is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. SJP approved 19th of Feb 25.
Ready, steady, the time to knock is on.
Race down to your nearest Toyota centre and save up to an extra £1,000 on a new Toyota. But hurry, deals must end 31st of May. Toyota-thon sale event is on. Offer valid on eligible new vehicle orders 1st to 31st of May and registered by 31st of July 2025. Retail customers only. TSC supply. See Toyota.co.uk for details. Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Got any tips for the football?
Your best bet is to head over to Bet Victor. They're giving new customers a terrific welcome offer. If you bet a minimum of £10, they'll give you £30 in free bets.
Oh, that's a steal of a deal.
It's a good darn deal that'll make you squeal for real. Neil?
My name's not Neil.
I know, but you're right.
Listen to him. Make your best bet on the football at Bet Victor. 18 plus, opt in about any football marketing odds of even till greater, no cash out, 7-day expiry, terms and conditions apply. Gamble.org.
Find top-rated outdoor dining products on Amazon. Like this pizza oven with 5-star reviews, you'll get values and tasty pizza. All these barbecue gloves. Remember to take off before eating.
All this large windproof umbrella.
Because nobody wants a wet pizza. Amazon. Find highly rated products at prices you'll love.
Ben Kentish on LBC. Text 84850.
Quick look at tomorrow's front pages before we chat with Phil in Reading, starting with, where should we start? Let's start with The Guardian. Minister accused of surge in meetings with big US tech firms. A senior cabinet minister, this is Peter Kyle, the technology secretary, has been accused of being too close to big tech after analysis showed a surge in his department's meetings with firms like Google, Amazon, Apple and Meta since Labour came to power. The drink prices set to rise in blow to Starmer's cost of living plan. Cost of butter, chocolate, coffee, lamb and potatoes soar, and prices are set to rise further in a big blow, presumably for people's Sunday roast. Lamb, potatoes and less so the chocolate and coffee. The Daily Mail looks at the story that we are talking about this hour. Yet another Labour plan to go soft on criminals. Why have you blamed the Labour Party for the crisis in prisons? I really do struggle with by the names. This is a result of Tory government promising to lock more people up without bothering to actually check that they had the spaces to lock those people up in. And then quickly realising they didn't. That's what's fueled this crisis. And you can blame Labour for a lot of things that's happened since they took office. You can't blame them. That's absurd. Let's start with Times. Early release for sexual offenders as Thank you very much indeed for ringing this evening. Derek's in Croydon tonight. Hi, Derek.
Good evening, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yourself?
I'm all right. I don't totally agree with you.
Okay, that's fine.
I just feel that locking people up and not doing anything with them,
Yeah.
depending on circumstances, I do I'm not talking about sex offenders for a moment. I'm not talking about murderers.
Sure, of course.
I'm talking about the normal people who go into prison who have been doing the burglary that we're talking about, burglary, and to get money, whether it's for fun, whatever it is. I don't believe, and I have fair experience, I know personally, but I don't think the prison service is set up to rehabilitate people in it. And if it's not, then what the problem is, if you lock people up, I don't care whether you lock them up for 6 months, a year, 2 years, you give them 50% off, you give them an extra 10% off, you give them, the bottom line is, if there's not any change to their circumstances when they went in to when they come out, what's the point? The point of putting them in, except for there is a lot of people out there who are doing the good, they would find going in for 3 meals a day, over their heads, etc., etc.
It's just it's a joke. We are paying millions and millions of pounds on putting in prison people who have been in prison and have come out and reoffended because the prison system is broken. The government's response to that? Let's build it. Derek, I agree. It's madness. It's absolute madness. So thank you for the call. Final word on this one. I think it's Colin in Dagenham, at least for now. Colin.
I've got a big cricket artist notice. Yeah, I've just got a couple of ideas. I thought something else. The first thing I would do is with the prisoners is hold labour. I'm sorry if it's not politically correct, but when you go in prison, you can't play pool all day. You've got to work. And why not get the especially the younger ones build their prisons, and they're going to probably end up living in the prison or not.
They've got to build their own prisons.
Yeah, and it's private, and then and then you can do plumbing, do playing, and then if you can't be bothered to, if you still rather earn a week's work and hours, then it's up to you. But one other thing, if I can say quickly, why not charge people when they're in prison? If another person goes to home and they've got a house, they've got to sell it to pay for it. Why not make these prisoners pay 20-30 grand a year to be in prison? Because they're the most of the right time. Yeah, but these other criminals, these big houses, big cars, get them to sell their cars, charge them 20-30 grand a year.
Should a prisoners be quid afford to pay 30 grand a year to be in prison?
I don't know. But you say about the drugs, but are these people who actually just sell it marijuana? Whenever I see these things on TV, they don't go inside. They don't go inside. Okay. So we're going to legalise that next,
I'm not. Well, even if we don't legalise it, I agree with you. People who sell Class A drugs, it's not a victimless crime by any means. They should be punished. Do they need to be locked away for months and years on end? Is there not something else we can do to penalise?
There's no alternative to prison, is there? You've just got to make it. There isn't. I'm sorry, but
Thinking about
what though? I'm not even going to say.
take the text and said make them clean suits.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a bit sorry, but I'm quite for doing a bit more prisons. I don't mind paying an extra £100 or £200 a year, But teaching plumbing, they're all plumbers are on the criminal wages anyway, aren't they? So you might as well.
It's a bit unfair on the plumbers, Colin.
They're all going around the year, but
all the things that our taxes could be spent on right now, given the state of the you're happy for it to £5 billion more to be spent on new prisons?
Yes, I know. Yeah,
capacity in spaces for male inmates in England and Wales will hit zero by November. Prison education researcher Lucy Harding told LBC investment should be focused on crime prevention instead.
This is a sticking plaster over a huge, complex problem that unfortunately doesn't require a simple solution such as this. It solves the problem in the short term, but the number will just continue to increase and continue to increase. And so what do we do next? We build more prisons, and we end up in a situation similar to America, where the percentage of population in prisons is absolutely huge.
Elsewhere, Vladimir Putin won't be travelling to Turkey for peace talks with Ukraine, despite calls from Volodymyr Zelensky for him to attend. The Kremlin says its delegation in Istanbul will instead be headed by the presidential aide. Ukraine's leader had previously said he would meet the Russian president in person if he agreed. Meanwhile, Donald Trump met the leader of Qatar and thanked him for helping with the Ukrainian peace talks. Earlier, the US president also met Syria's new leader, the man once classed as a terrorist by Washington. But his four-day tour of the Middle East does not include a visit to Israel. Jeffrey Feltman, former US Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, told Andrew Marr that won't go down well.
Firstly, outreach to Iran where it comes to Iran, where basically faced the public with that announcement when he made his last visit to the White House. Then there's the outreach, of course, to Syria, where Israel has been quite clear that they're unhappy with having former jihadi Ahmed Bashar now president of Syria.
A body's been found in the search for a 16-year-old boy missing in North Wales. The teenager, named only as Athra, was last seen on West Shore Beach in Llandudno at around 2 p.m. on Saturday. A body was seen on Tuesday evening, prompting a search of the water by Coast Guard and divers. And police have been given more time to question a 21-year-old man over arson attacks on properties linked to Sakir Starmer. They're investigating 3 fires, including one at a house where the Prime Minister lived before moving into Downing Street. LBC weather dry tonight with clear spells and lows of 4 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm James Kitchen.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Ben Kentish.
And I thought here's the time. It's been a while since you and I talked about the situation in the Middle East, and in a way I think that is the point, that the attention that has been focused on the plight of the people of Gaza and the situation that confronts them right now has dropped off a cliff in the last few months. It seems to me that we're turning our back collectively. The world is turning its back. The West in
blockade of aid, medical supplies, and equipment into Gaza. To your question, why is it that we are turning our backs? I would probably pose it in a different way. I think on the whole, the British public are not turning their back. What we've got in Gaza at the moment is a situation where the British public supports intervention. The British public do not support the UK government stance in Gaza. The British public would prefer to see more coverage of this humanitarian catastrophe. But at the moment, no journalist is allowed access into Gaza. So unlike the situation in Ethiopia, the fact is that when Michael Burke, for example, would do the reports around the
sort of vaguely condemnatory words from Western leaders, we haven't seen much else. Have we? What's going on here? Why has the world turned its back on the situation in Gaza? To Ahmed in Hackney this evening. Hello, Ahmed.
Yes, very good evening to you. Thank you for having me on your show. First of all, we are in very bad times. What happened on the 7th for everyone, it's causing so much problems, and I don't blame, I don't blame you for, and anybody, that's in the West, or you're a Jewish man, I think, and I'm a Muslim, and, it's, we should come together, and, this is a famine that's affecting all of us.
This is it. Humanity is what matters here. Whatever you think of Hamas, whatever you think about the rights and the wrongs of the war on Gaza, Israel's right to wage it, surely everybody can agree that the children of Gaza are not responsible for any of this.
Of course, my brother, of course. It's a lot of, a bad apple rubs the best. It's everything we are dreaming is like a state of Israel. We want a state of, I'm from Lebanon originally. I have some family over there now, and I'm having nightmares every day. I'm having nightmares through the day. I am so sorry about that. And the West could do more. Trump is doing nothing for us. He's doing nothing. NATO is our, it's like us for the Ukraine. We have no security at the moment. The Red Cross, they're being bombed. How can they get food in there? Starving. If people look at the concentration camps of Jewish people when they are starving. This is what our people are going for. Why are they not? Because they have brown skin, some of them, and they're being looked at differently. I believe that, and I don't like to bring colour into it, but it is. If they were any,
you think it's racism?
Yeah, come on, my brother. I think so. Yeah, I think it is because, they were. I think if they were Caucasian kids or something like that, I think it would have been different. I don't know. I think so. I think there's something there, and our own leaders, our own people have turned this. This is not all Israel, but it is Israel leader at the moment. That's you saying that. Yeah. He's going to need a lot to answer for.
And there's a lot and you're right, Ahmed, to point out that a lot of people in Israel, Israeli citizens, are absolutely appalled by what is going on in Gaza and what is being done in their name by their far-right government.
Yeah. I know people are good, some good people in Israel, but the thing is, we are not being listened to. We have some idiot. We have some very bad people in our group, in our country, in Palestine. But in Gaza at the moment, we were one. We were brothers as well. We go back years. But this fighting is, we got on with Sharon. We got on with Sharon years ago. But this man is a devil. I'm sorry to say.
Who, Netanyahu?
Yeah.
Well, you won't hear me find a good word to say about Benjamin Netanyahu.
We all want him gone.
As do a lot of people in Israel. But there isn't a way that they can get rid of him just yet. When there is, I suspect they will. The question is, isn't it, how much damage will he do in Gaza, but also, I would say, to the interests of the state of Israel before that happens? How many people will suffer? How many people will die because of what he is doing? Ahmed, thank you very much indeed for the call. This comes in from Sam in Bristol. Ben, you're obsessed with demonising Israel. You ask why it seems so easy to turn our back on the people of Gaza. Well, I'd ask you why people like you seem to have forgotten the plight of the hostages. The hostages are being held in Gaza, sir. The very same Gaza where Israel is blockading food. So if you care about the hostages who are being held in Gaza, then you should be absolutely joining the campaign for Israel to let in aid, because it's not just in the interest of the 2.1 million people of the Gaza Strip, it's also in the interests of the hostages who are being held in an area where right now there is no food. So whoever you care about, whether it's the Palestinians or whoever it is in the Gaza Strip, everybody benefits from there being food, humanitarian aid. And yes, of course I care about hostages. Do you care about the 1 million children in Gaza? No. It's no. It's because you say there is no famine in Gaza. These charities have been demonising Israel, threatening famine for the duration
comes to the actual aid itself, I can tell you that the legal basis of Israel's decision to halt aid entry into Gaza is consistent with international law, specifically Article 23 of the 4th Geneva Convention, which states that a country is not required to allow aid if it will be diverted to enemy combatants. That is very, very clear. Now, when it comes to the actual amount of aid, we've put in 1.8 million tons of aid in Gaza, enough to fill Wembley Stadium 80 times. There is still enough food in Gaza.
The UN and multiple charities in Gaza say something very, very different. Martin Twickenham this evening. Hi,
Today, there was a debate in Parliament for this morning. The British government lawyers went to court to argue positively that there is no genocide going on and there's no risk of genocide. Therefore, it's okay to allow Israel to obtain parts of the F-35 jets which are bombing hospitals and so forth, because there is no risk of genocide. This afternoon, in the government debate, when there was a well-attended chamber and lots of MPs there to debate what's going on in Gaza, there were many, many calls from the vast majority of something to be done. They kept saying action, not words. And the Foreign Office spokesman, when it was put to him that there is a genocide going on, said, to decide whether there's a genocide going on is a matter of we take a neutral view on that. So in the morning, we have government lawyers saying there is no genocide and there's no risk of genocide. So what the Israeli government and the IDF are doing with their F-35 fighter jets is fine with us. And then in the afternoon, you've got dozens and dozens of MPs saying we're not happy with what the Israelis, what the IDF is doing with F-35 fighter jets. And the Foreign Office spokesman, unable to condemn it, he's in an impossible position. And why? Well, let me tell you, because at the heart of this government, there is no belief that there is a genocide going on. I really think that at the heart of our government, they don't believe that what Israel is doing is fundamentally wrong. There's a blindness there.
I disagree.
Really quickly, that blindness does not affect many, many MPs. Thank goodness. It does not affect a lot of the population around the world.
Let me just come in there. Yes, you have the German Chancellor as well say that actions in. They do know, because for months now, Keir Starmer, David Lammy and other members of the UK government have been saying that the amount of aid being allowed into Gaza is unacceptable and Israel needs to do far more. So they do know this. They've said something that nothing changes.
They must do more. That is a very different thing from actually saying what's going on the part of the IDF and the Israeli government is wrong.
But I'm just saying, you just accused the UK government of not thinking it's wrong. I've just said that they have repeatedly said that on the aid issue specifically, it is wrong. But nothing changes, does it? They can say it to the council, but nothing changes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, until we have a British Prime Minister or Foreign Secretary standing up in the House of Commons and saying what's going on is wrong.
They've said it.
They haven't said
yes, they have.
They've said anguish making.
Wrong and unacceptable are the same thing.
No, it's not.
You come with me.
If I was to stand as a British MP in the 30s in a concentration camp in Germany and say what's going on is unacceptable, that's not saying what's going on is wrong.
I just disagree. I think if you say this situation is completely unacceptable, that is absolutely the same as saying what is going on is wrong. I don't really see the difference between Keir Starmer saying Israel not letting aid in Gaza is unacceptable and Keir Starmer saying Israel not letting aid into Gaza is wrong. To me, they are exactly the same. But thank you for the call. Are you okay?
prison expansion with work to build 3 new jails starting this year. Shabana Mahmood's also announced short-term measures to tackle overcrowding, with the number of spare cells in England and Wales due to hit 0 by November. Vladimir Putin won't be travelling to Turkey for peace talks with Ukraine, despite calls from Volodymyr Zelensky for him to attend. The Kremlin says its delegation in Istanbul will instead be headed by a presidential aide. And a body has been found in the search for a 16-year-old boy missing in North Wales. The teenager, named only as Avran, was last seen on West Shore Beach in Llandudno at around 2 p.m. on Saturday. LBC weather dry tonight with clear spells and lows of 4 degrees.
This is LBC.
Thanks to their unique boutique spirit, there really is nothing quite like a Saga River cruise. There are the elegantly designed spirit ships, the all-inclusive dining, and of course, Saga's carefully selected excursions. You know, they'll even drive you to and from the airport with their nationwide chauffeur service. And how long now, Charles? Oh, half an hour. Marvellous. Search Saga River Cruises. Experience is everything. 2026 season on sale now. Chauffeur service available on UK mainland. Full terms apply, over 50s only.
Ready, steady, the Toyota-thon is on!
Race down to your nearest Toyota centre and save up to an extra £1,000 on a new Toyota. But hurry! Deals must end 31st of May. The Toyota-thon sale event is on. Offer valid on eligible new vehicle orders 1st to 31st of May and registered by 31st of July 2025. Retail customers only. T&C supply. See toyota.co.uk for details.
The British Red Cross is here to welcome people fleeing the conflict in Ukraine.
We're here to help people to safety when storms hit.
We're here to show anyone struggling that someone cares.
Oh yeah, that's a huge help.
We're here for humanity. With your support, the Red Cross has helped millions of people in the UK and 190 other countries. Search British Red Cross to support us. Together, we are the world's emergency responders.
This is LBC with Ben Kentish. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
11:35 Dale gets in touch on WhatsApp. I agree with the last few callers. We've turned our back on the people of Gaza because they are not white, unlike Ukraine. Trump says he wanted to stop the wars, but in my opinion, he only meant the white wars. Les in Eltham says, go directly into Gaza and drop food directly on the ground with helicopters. At least something will get through. Could be done tomorrow. I guess the answer is because it would infuriate our allies in the Israeli government. But is it time to say, well, look, we've supported you long enough, you've had your opportunity, we've told you what we think needs to happen, if you're not going to do it, we will intervene. I don't know, but it strikes me that everything that's been said to the Netanyahu government by is being, it would just count for nothing. You might as well just shout into the wind. That's
people like yourself.
What do you think I'm guilty of?
Like journalists. Sorry?
What do you think I'm guilty of?
Disingenuous framing. Frame it as mass. Frame it as a Netanyahu issue.
Framing what?
Zionism predates Netanyahu. Zionism is the issue.
What is Zionism to you?
Well, actually, what is Zionism to me? How about what is Zionism to Palestinians?
No, I'm asking you. You're the one who's calling me to talk about Zionism. I'm asking you what it is to you.
Zionism to me is what it is to Palestinians, which is we believe that we can take your home due to this political ideology, which means that we can take your home and establish a state within
So you think Israel shouldn't exist?
What does that mean? This what I mean with you know,
It's fairly straight. No. I'll tell you what it means. It's not clear. Do you think the state of Israel should exist?
Not in its current form, no.
So should it exist?
As democracy, where every person within the lines between the river and the sea has equal opportunity. How about that then? That's not clear.
But within Israel's borders.
Between the river and the sea. But between in that whole land, Palestinians and Jews are all equal with equal voting rights.
Gaza and the West Bank is
Gaza and the West Bank.
Gaza and the West Bank is not part of the state of Israel.
Well, you just asked me, do you believe
Unless you're saying Israel should annex Gaza and the West Bank and make it part of Israel's territory, then I don't really know.
To be honest, after you're asking me the question if whether they should exist or not. Yeah. So whatever you want to call it, Israel, Palestine, whatever you want to call it, to be honest, after what Israel's been doing, you know, unspeakable like horrors in the past 18 months, just sticking the Israeli flag in the ground as a mark of pride. It shouldn't be called Israel. However, the name is irrelevant. The point is, do you believe that two people are equal and should be able to live equally in that land? But clearly you don't, because you keep framing things in a disingenuous way.
Honestly, Stefan, you keep saying that, and I'm asking you
why.
Yes,
I'm going to call you out on it. What's the point?
I still don't know what you're calling me out on, because you said the 2 million. You said everyone from the river to the sea should be given the same rights. But people who live in Gaza and people who live in West Bank aren't part of the state of Israel. So I don't really know what you're getting at.
But you're not trying to understand what I'm getting at, because you keep.
I really am. But you said things that are very contradictory. You haven't explained the contradiction.
What's the contradiction?
The contradiction is that you suggested that all people under the same legal kind of entity should be treated the same from the river to the sea. And all I'm saying is that the land from the river to the sea is not ruled by one country or one legal entity.
One state solution. Have you heard that before? One state solution.
Right. So you think that Israel should annex Gaza and the West Bank?
I think that whatever way you wanna frame it, it's not about annexing.
That's what you're calling it.
The way you're framing it,
that's what you're calling it. You're either calling for the abolition of the state of Israel, or you're calling for Israel to annex Gaza and the West Bank.
The point in talking over me, Constant.
Because I'm asking you questions.
No, all you're trying to do is interrupt me, so I can't actually get a point now.
It's definitely a conversation.
It's not a conversation right now, because you're not letting me talk. Can I talk then?
Of course you can. Go on.
Thank you. Right. Doesn't matter in what way you want to call it, what name you want to call it, a one-state solution. So everyone in that land is equal between that land. If you want to call it Israel annexing Gaza and the West Bank, now in the current situation that we're in now, that makes it sound like Israel is going to annex Gaza and the West Bank, and we're going to continue with the status quo as it is now, which is apartheid and Israeli domination of the Palestinians, because they don't see them as the same people, and everyone, even layman observers, have come to see that now.
Do you think there should be a Palestinian state?
I can't keep emphasising this enough. The name of the mechanism, or whatever you want to call it, is not so important as the fact that people can live their lives freely.
It's the question of whether
it is to you, because like I said, this is the kind of disingenuous attack. This is method that you have to try and throw things off course.
Stefan,
quite simple what I'm saying.
It's really not right. It's really it's quite interesting that you
it's not even disingenuous.
Stefan, there's only one person in this conversation that is quite consistently interrupting. It isn't me. The question of who and what form of government is responsible for the land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea is absolutely at the heart of the issue, the intractable issue that has been going on for the last 80 years.
If you want to talk about the crux of the issue, then educate your listeners as to what Zionism is. Tell me when Zionism being good to Palestinians.
You're not responding to the point. Do you really think it doesn't matter whether the land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean is an Israeli state or a Palestinian one or both?
Did you hear me say that the name of the state doesn't matter? It's about everyone having an equal opportunity in that land.
So you don't think whether it's a Jewish state or a Palestinian Arab state matters?
This is the thing. A Jewish state is what Israel is currently right now. Yes. And what it means is that every Jew in every location, including you, has the right to return to Israel.
What I believe, Stefan, is there should be a Jewish state within the 1967 borders, and there should be a Palestinian state in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. That's my view. That's what I think the solution to this is. 2 states. For 2 people.
But that's fair enough if that's your view. However, tell me when has Zionism been good to Palestinians? Tell me when it has. What year?
The early 90s, when there was a proposal on the table for what I'm talking about, and it was rejected by Yasser Arafat.
So Palestinians have it being robbed from their lands. And
this is the point, Stephen. You don't believe in a 2-state solution.
That's good to Palestinians.
You don't believe in a 2-state solution because you fundamentally don't believe Israel has any right to exist as a Jewish state.
I don't believe in the supremacy of Jewish people within that land. That's not fair.
Right. So So you okay with there being plenty of Muslim countries in the world, presumably? You okay with there being plenty of Protestant countries in the world? Are you okay with there being lots of Catholic countries in the world? It's just the Jewish state.
Are you asking? So you're not asking questions, are you?
I am. I just asked you one. Why is it only the Jewish state that you have an issue?
You're still speaking. Muslim countries as if they're all the same. As if all the countries are just the same country. No, it's not a monolith. Like, everyone's got different... The same way Europe is different.
You're just not answering the question. There's dozens of Catholic countries, dozens of Muslim countries, there's Hindu countries, there's Protestant countries, and you seem to be of the view that the only country that shouldn't exist is the world's only Jewish one.
I will concede on that, to be fair. I will concede on that.
The only country that you don't think should exist is the world's only Jewish one.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Because there are a lot of Muslim countries, then that means a Jewish state should be formed on top of the dead bodies of Palestinians, as it was.
There we go. This is it. You once you break it down, once you get behind the rhetoric, and what becomes clear is that some people just don't fundamentally believe that the Jewish people deserve hope, and that is it. And when you say, well, why does every other religion get to have countries that are based on its doctrines and its teachings, but not the Jewish religion? There's no answer. And then Stefan says, yeah. The question is there, and it goes unanswered. You can hear it. Stefan, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. More to come in just a moment. It is 11:47.
LBC, coming up tomorrow morning on Nick Ferrari at breakfast. That was then.
The eyes to the right, 330. The nose to the left, 275. The eyes have it a lot.
This is now.
This was supposed to be a well-considered, thought-out bill. One of the anchors on which it was built was this idea of a hard court judge. Now we're seeing that watered down. It's obviously a huge concern.
Spotlight and scrutiny on the issue of assisted dying as the bill to legalise the practice returns to Parliament, and it is a life or death decision. And now your chance to put questions to the MP behind the campaign. Join me for an exclusive phone-in with Labour MP Kim Leadbeater. Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio, on Global Player, and the new LBC app.
When you sail on a Saga cruise, you really can relax, because so much is included. A choice of specialty restaurants? Included. A balcony with every cabin? Included. Wonderfully attentive staff? Included. Spotting a whale out at sea? Included. Realizing the whale is actually just a wave? Included. Search Saga Boutique Cruises 2026 season on sale now. Experience is everything. T's and C's apply. Over 50s only.
Mickey could try to sell his car privately. Or get it sold today with We Buy Any Car. He could spend days on end trying to sell to a bunch of time wasters. Or sell in a flash and head to the fun fair with the kids. Proper gutted. Or proper impressed. To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
Hey, Harry,
Hello, mate.
Got any tips for the football?
Your best bet is to head over to Bet Victor. They're giving new customers a terrific welcome offer. If you bet a minimum of £10, they'll give you £30 in free bets.
Fool, that's a steal of a deal.
It's a good darn deal that'll make you squeal for real. Neil?
My name's not Neil.
I know, but you're right.
Listen, Dad, make your best bet on the football at Bet Victor. 18 plus, opt in about any football marketing or intervene to agree to no cash out, 7-day expiry, terms and conditions apply. Gambleware.org.
Hi, I'm Sava, founder of Cool You. And when it comes to getting aircon into London's hot and stuffy apartments and listed buildings, I'm the daddy. For years, Cool You have supplied and installed fully internal aircon systems with no mess, no fuss, and no external condensers. So head to coolu.london today. Cool You, for a cool, comfortable home.
Ben Kentish on LBC. Text 84850.
11:50, so let's carry on a conversation about why in your West has turned its back, or the world, I should say, has turned its back on the people of Gaza and what we should do about it, as the UN warns that the entire population of the Gaza Strip, including 1 million children, are now at risk of famine. Mike's in Wembley tonight. Mike.
Hi Ben.
Hi.
Is your wife still feeding you?
Is my wife what, Mike?
She's still feeding you.
Oh, she feeds me, I feed her.
She's doing the cooking.
Yeah, we split it pretty equal.
Oh, it sounds good.
Cheers, mate.
Anyway.
Thanks for checking in. I'm well fed, mate, don't worry.
No, I'm just
too well fed.
You're too fat.
Well, that's it. More of a risk of that than me being underfed. Talk to me about the Middle East.
Right, Middle East. Well, Ben, imagine Glastonbury, and 1,200 people were shot dead.
Yep.
How do we feel?
Yep.
Not great. But I understand there's a lot of animals, and I deeply respect the Muslim people. I deeply respect them, and I've had relationships, personal relationships. I've slept with Jewish people, if I can say that.
Excuse me?
Yeah, but
Mike, I wasn't asking about your sexual history.
I know, but listen, I deeply respect both cultures.
Right, okay.
What I have noticed...
Do you have to sleep with people to respect them?
Well, you get to know them,
Okay.
But no, I mean, all joking aside, this is a serious concept. But imagine 1,200 people were shot dead at Glastonbury.
Yes, and you're talking about the October the 7th, which is obviously where people at a music festival were massacred in the most appalling, barbaric fashion.
Yeah, and they went around making sure they were shot. Put 2 bullets in their head, double tap, they call it, the SAS. Yeah, it was horrific. And 1,200 dead. And it was so premeditated that they took the hostages. Now, what they need... Look, I was clerk of the court, clerk of the justices. I've broken things every single day of the week. 10 a day sometimes. What do you want? What do you want? But listen, that could be easily broken out, but the first thing that needs to happen... And as I say, I deeply respect both.
All right, what needs to happen?
Is release the hostages, and then let's get talking.
Do you really think that if Hamas release the hostages, Netanyahu will let the aid flow into Gaza? Because of course,
yeah, I think he would. Well,
I don't. And obviously, I mean, you're right. Of course you are. The innocent people being held captive in Gaza by a barbarous terror group need to be released and should have been released and should never have been taken. That goes without saying. But I don't think that solves the issue. I don't think that's the only issue here, Mike, is what I'm saying.
But Ben, there's masses of issues. It just needs a simple man like me, clerk of the justices, to, simple, humble man. He'd go in. I wouldn't even wear a bulletproof jacket.
You reckon you could sort it out, Mike?
Yeah, I'll just say, look, come on, they want this, you want this.
Do you not think people have tried that?
Bigger problems, yeah.
Do you not think, Bill Clinton and a series of US presidents have given that a go?
You just need a simple, humble man.
Right. So you would succeed where Bill Clinton and Barack Obama failed.
I'm not saying I'm great, but basically...
You sort of are, Mike. You sort of are, if you're saying you're the bloke to end the conflict in the Middle East. What? You've sorted out... What?
What do you want?
Sorry, backtrack. You've sorted out bigger problems than the Arab-Israeli conflict.
Well, everybody's problem is a big problem. And
what problem did you solve that was bigger than the Arab-Israeli conflict?
Well, I'll just say you're both Semitic people, and they want their loved ones
released.
Right.
And
you think that would be it? No more fighting?
No. Well, obviously they'd say we want this, that, and the other, and say, well, if you give us this, we'll give you that. And let's get these.
Mike, I respect your optimism. I respect your hope. I think it might be just a tad more complicated. You might think you'd be to resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict, but good on you for giving it a go, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. Anna's a new caller just down the road from Mike, also in Wembley. Hi, Anna.
Yes, hello.
The thoughts on this? Why are we turning our backs?
Sorry, I've decided to call you because I've been listening to your conversation. Every single time that I'm going back from work, your time on the radio time, I'm listening to.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for your company.
You're absolutely amazing. I just wanted to say very quickly,
Stefan didn't think so.
Thank you. The majority of the issues that you're taking on your calls is amazing because you always are able to kind of put yourself aside without being biased, if that makes sense. But generally, what happened today when you had the caller from that was basically supporting the fact that it doesn't matter, what we name the state of Israel, Palestine, or two states, or I don't know, it may have with a new name, as long as the people there can live side by side. So this is when I decided to basically give you a call and say it's just a solution. It's not going to happen, unfortunately, and I came to that acceptance, which is not something that I'm proud of, but it's shameful because I needed to accept that I know it's not going to happen. Simply because many, it's now counting years, because it's not only, the past couple of years when Hamas did what they did, and, the whole world is all of a sudden forgetting about everything, closing eyes to what the Israel government and the military people doing with Palestinians.
Why do you think we have in this particular crisis, this famine that's fastly worse?
Famine is genocide, and let's just do it. Let's just put it black and white in capital letters. Yes, there is genocide going on, and yes, it's very much deliberate to do so. If not, there is also, the whole sort of scheme of settlers, taking over
in the West Bank. I agree. It's awful. Genocide is, in your opinion, it's the opinion of other people. It hasn't been proven legally yet. There is an ongoing court case, but you're saying that this is not a coincidence. This is not an accident, and you are right in the sense that it is a conscious decision of the Israeli government to not let as much aid as needs to be led into Gaza. And they say, well, that's because Hamas steals some of it, which is true. Does that justify potentially starving 2.1 million people? No, I don't think it does. Anna, thank you for the call. I want to squeeze in Vance before we move on. Hi, Vance. Regent's Park. Hi.
I've done quite a lot of charity fundraising for a Jewish charity in London, and they've taken me to Israel twice actually to see the fruits of my fundraising, water reservoirs, Negev and things like that. And what I found on both trips to Israel is that the hatred, the fury in both camps for each other, amongst Palestinians or Israelis, amongst Israelis or Palestinians, is so deep, so corrosive, that the chance of a peaceful resolution is absolutely impossible. It depresses me to make this admission, but I think people don't understand how deep this hatred for each other, this suspicion for each other goes.
It's not everywhere, though. I mean, the 7th of October, for example, the massacre. One of the many tragedies, and there were an awful lot on that day, was that an awful lot of the people that were butchered in just horrific fashion by Hamas were peace activists. They were people who had tried to bridge those divisions. So there are people on both sides, and I've had them in this very studio on this program, Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs, who are immune to the hatred and are still fighting the good fight for peace. And while there are people doing that, I still have hope. Maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm living a pipe dream, but I still have hope that this is possible, even if it seems further away than ever.
Yes, I go along with you, but when I went out to Israel, I found that the security forces, the people at the airport and so forth, they treated me appallingly because for some reason they found me suspicious, and yet they knew I was traveling with my friends from the security, but I was, at Heathrow when I checked in, I had only hand luggage. They found that very suspicious. They detained me for an hour and a half to strip search me. They took my boots off. I was wearing Chelsea boots. They took my boots off, trying to see what was hidden in my boots. They marched me along Heathrow corridors.
But again, I'm not saying it's sort of all right, but from their security perspective, given the incredible threats that have been carried out and the crimes and the attacks on Israeli civilians, then to an extent I understand why they are so security. But yeah, difficult and upsetting for you. I hear that completely, and I know a lot of people have been similarly treated. Barnes, thank you very much indeed for wrapping up our conversation on that for now. I just think whatever side of this you are on, whatever your views on the rights and wrongs of the war, the Israeli government, the situation, all that has to be put to one side when 1 million children are at risk of starvation. And letting aid to help those people, it's not, let's be honest, it's not going to be a massive act of sort of strengthening for us. It's not going to swing the balance of the conflict. We're talking here about food and medicine for kids. And whatever your views now, surely we can agree on the importance of the food and that medicine to those children now, not a day soon, not a day later. Thank you, Volts, for wrapping up our conversation. Something completely different from the side of the news at 12 o'clock. I want to talk to you about parenting and the impact that your parents had on you and your adult life in a positive way, or perhaps a negative. I'll tell you why we're talking about that just after this 12 o'clock.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at midnight, the Justice Secretary's promised record prison expansion with work to build 3 new jails starting this year. It's been warned they're running at 99% capacity and spaces for male inmates in England and Wales will hit 0 by November. Shabana Mahmood's also announced short-term measures including on recalls, which will be limited for offenders serving between 1 and 4 years. But the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, says there are other choices she could have made.
Justice Secretary is failing to protect the public. She could have brought forward emergency measures to tackle the 10,000 foreign criminals who are in our prisons. She could have brought forward emergency measures to get our courts sitting 7 days a week.
A man suspected of a double stabbing near Liverpool has been shot by armed police. Officers were called to Hyden shortly before 4:30 yesterday afternoon. The suspect has been taken to hospital, as have the man and woman who were assaulted. Merseyside police say they're in a serious but stable condition. A body's been found in the search for a 16-year-old boy missing in North Wales. The teenager, named only as Athron, was last seen on West Shore Beach in Llandudno at around 2 p.m. on Saturday. A body was seen on Tuesday evening, prompting a search of the water by Coast Guard and divers. The top humanitarian official at the UN has issued a stark warning to the Security Council over the situation in Gaza.
What more evidence do you need now? Will you act decisively to prevent genocide and to ensure respect for international humanitarian law? Or will you say instead that we did all we could?
Tom Fletcher says Israel is deliberately risking a famine in the territory by blocking all aid, while emergency supplies are still stacked in warehouses in Israel, Egypt and in Jordan. The Israeli mission to the UN says the country won't accept any mechanism that props up Hamas. Vladimir Putin won't be travelling to Turkey for peace talks with Ukraine, despite calls from Volodymyr Zelensky for him to attend. The Kremlin says its delegation in Istanbul will instead be headed by a presidential aide. Ukraine's leader had previously said he would meet the Russian president in person if he agreed. And the co-op says it's bringing its systems back online after a major cyber attack. It's led to significant disruption with nearly bare shelves in some of its stores. LBC weather heading into a largely dry day with warm sunshine and highs of 21 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm James Kitchen.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Ben Kentish.
12:04 is the time. Very good morning for just joining me here on LBC. Ben Kentish here with you for another hour. We're going to talk about something quite different this hour. We've spoken quite a lot in the last few months about the impact that various things in your childhood might have had on your life, whether that's social media, whether it's going to boarding school. One of the most powerful phone-ins I've done in a very long time was about the impact of being sent to boarding school. And what we all don't want to kind of state the obvious is that your childhood, the childhood experience you have in your early years, will play a massive part in shaping who you are as an adult and how your life pans out in adulthood. That's obvious, we all know that. But something we sort of sometimes skim over, I think, in a way, when we talk about the impact of school and education and technology and all the rest of it, is the most fundamental thing of all, which is who your mum is and who your dad is. Because we've all got one. We've all got a mum, we've all got a dad. We don't all have mums and dads who are present, who are active, or who are loving. And that's the conversation I want to have with you between now and 1 o'clock. It's a bit of an unusual. It's not something we've talked about before. But I'm keen to get your perspectives on how your parents' behaviour, how they treated you as a child, impacted you, the person you are, and the life you've had as an adult. We're talking about this because there's a fascinating academic study that's been done that finds that how affectionate your mum was towards you has quite a big impact on how creative, kinder, and even more organised you are as an adult. So if your mum is affectionate towards you when you're a child, you are more likely, statistically, to be creative, kind, and even more organised when you're an adult. And that's just one of the many, many examples of how your parents treat you, or how your parent, if it was a single parent family, how they treated you, how much love they showed you, how much warmth and affection they showed you, whether they listened to you, whether they allowed you to express your emotions, how transformative and enormous that is in shaping the person you go on to be. Now, some of us, and I'm very lucky, I had wonderful parents. Many of us will have wonderful parents, and you might want to call me and talk about how one of them, or perhaps both of them, did certain things or affected you in certain ways that you look back on and think, that made me the person I am today. Particularly maybe if it was a single parent who brought you up alone and made great sacrifices, and yet was always not just the one parent you needed them to be, but in some cases basically fulfilled the role of both. Perhaps you want to talk to me about how your parents' positive behaviour turned you into the adult you are today. But you might also want to share a story that's a bit less positive about the impact that your parents had on you as an adult. And I want to hear both sides of this. How did your parents' behaviour towards you as a child impact you and your life once you grew up? Now, that's a broad question. There's lots within that. But if you're listening to that thinking, oh, that reminds me of how that thing my mum did had a really negative impact on me, or that thing my dad did transformed me for the good into the person I am today, give me a call. Let's talk together about the impact that our parents had on the lives we've gone on to lead and the people that we've developed into, as it's revealed that a mother's warmth, affection, can turn children into kinder, creative and more organised adults. Call me this morning. 0345 6060 973 is the number. The impact that your parents had on you. If you grew up in a home that was cold, that was loveless, that parents that didn't display affection and warmth towards you, how do you feel about hearing of these findings and thinking that that's something maybe you missed out on? And what impact do you think that had on you? Interested to hear from you if that's your story. But also if you think, thank God that yes, I was lucky enough to have warm, loving, kind, supportive parents. And I want to talk about the great ways in which they raised me that have set me up brilliantly for life. Let's talk about that too. That number once more, 0345 6060 973 is the number. Or maybe you want to talk about, as a parent, the things that you think you got wrong, or the things that you got right as you look back on how you were with your children. Maybe you were somebody who thinks, God, I really should have shown them more warmth and affection. I loved them to bits, but I wasn't very good at showing it. And it's only as they've grown into adults that I realise I should have done that a bit more. If you want to talk about this from a parent's perspective rather than a child's, very much here for that this morning as well. 03456060973. What impact did your parents' behaviour towards you as a child have on you as an adult? Let's talk to the woman who conducted the study. Jasmine Burks is Professor of Sociology at the University of Edinburgh, who conducted this research into the links between a mum's affection and the adults that their children turn out to be. Jasmine, great to have you with us this morning. What's your interpretation of the importance of what you've uncovered in this research?
Yes, so we found that parenting at an early age, so between ages 5 and 10, had effects on children's personality when they're 18 years old. So relatively long-lasting effects from that early age up to age 18. And we found effects for 3 personality traits: open-mindedness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. And those are pretty important personality traits, as you can imagine. So they are linked with very important life outcomes, like the type of job you get, how much you get paid, how well you do in school, and so on. So it seems to be the case here, based on our findings, that parenting can have these wide-ranging impacts by affecting those personality traits.
Which I guess, Jasmine, to most people, they would have assumed that was the case. That we know, don't we, how huge an impact our parents and their parenting skills can have on us growing up.
Absolutely, yes, you're absolutely right. However, it is the case that there are also many other influences that play a role in personality, and one important influence is genetics. And so in many studies where we look at parenting and personality, it's not so easy to rule out that impact of genetics. And so that's why we compare twins to each other. So we, in our study, we looked at differences in affection and parenting between twins. We found that a twin who was parented more affectionately by the mother compared to their co-twins differed in their personality later on. And because the twins are genetically identical, we can be a lot more confident here that there is really that role of parenting.
The nurture nature argument, and what you found is actually that nurture, or perhaps in some cases a lack of nurture, is hugely important for shaping people's personality.
Absolutely. I could add that many of these effects are quite small, so that's something to consider, but at the same time, they were relatively long-lasting, as they said, up to age 18, and they were also very robust against this, taking into account of other influences, including genetics.
The headlines I've seen about your study focuses on quite a lot on mums. Did you find that it's generally mothers and their behaviour and their parenting that is more impactful than fathers?
So we did not actually look at fathers in our study, which we would have loved to do, but we did not have the data on the fathers. Generally, in previous studies, it has been found that fathers' parenting is very important as well. Would not want to say that it's only the mothers, but in our study, as I said, unfortunately, we weren't able to look at the fathers.
Would you, from the evidence that we do have, would it be fair to assume that mum is more influential in this area, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily based on the evidence we have, but unfortunately, there are very few studies that look at fathers. So we just need more research.
Why is that?
Well, it's tricky at times because studies often recruit mothers into studies, and fathers might not be able or willing to participate. It's also the case that, especially when you look at slightly older children, fathers don't always live with the children anymore at older ages. So obviously we know that many parents split up or separate, and so it makes it a lot harder for researchers, or researchers involves a lot more effort than to study fathers as well.
What would you say the implications are of your findings for parenting advice and policy when it comes to raising children?
Yeah, so our key takeaway message is that it's really important to support parents to be affectionate with their children, because they could benefit the young people as well as society, because we know that when young people are doing well, that's good for all of us. And this can be done in different ways. So, for example, there are parenting programs that support parents. There are also more indirect support. For example, we know that there are policies, any policies that help parents, for example, improve their financial situation, can be helpful because they allow parents to focus on parenting and not worry about other stressors such as finances. Mental health treatment is important, treating things such as parental depression. So all those things can have an impact on affectionate parenting.
When you say affection, I mean, people show affection in different ways, don't they? There's sort of physical affection, verbal affection.
Absolutely, yeah.
Show their affection through gifts or buying presents and so on. Have you got sort of thoughts, or is there evidence on which types of affection are particularly important?
No, not necessarily. And certainly based on our findings, we wouldn't want to tell parents what exactly they need to do because, as you say, parents can express that affection in different ways. So this could be behaviors such as smiling at the child, using a gentle tone like talking with the children, showing interest in the child's thoughts and feelings, praising children. And of course, it's also the case that parents can't always be positive. So I have 2 children myself, so it's easy to discipline your children. But even that can be done in a caring and empathic manner. For example, trying to take the child's perspective, showing understanding, and so on.
And it's in a way it's uplifting to look at what you found, how raising children, even something as simple as showing them love and affection, can make them into creative and sort of well-rounded and ultimately happy adults. It's worth just touching on the people who aren't that lucky, Jasmine, who for whatever reason miss out on those things from their parents. They don't get the affection, and that's true, I think, of a lot of people alive today. What would you say about them? People who might listen to this thinking, well, if only my mum or my dad had been as affectionate as Jasmine's describing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there it comes back in that all our associations, all the findings that we observed were relatively small, which means that if someone has not been parented affectionately, it does not mean that they do. But there are many other influences on personality. There are other relationships that we have, not only with our parents, but with others. There are various experiences that shape our personalities. And so I certainly would not want to give those people the message that they're doomed to struggle, basically, based on those previous experiences.
It's the gap between people who do get love in childhood and those that don't get affection is not as big as people might assume.
No, that's exactly right.
Really interesting. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on and talking to us about your research. That's Jasmine Burt's Professor of Sociology at the University of Edinburgh, conducted this study. Your thoughts, your experiences on the impact that your parents had on you, whether that was a positive story you'd like to share about the wonderful home and family you grew up in, or perhaps it's not quite as positive, with not quite as happy an ending. Either way, call me 03456060973. How did your parents' behaviour towards you as a child shape your life now? Your calls on that and lots more to come just after this. It's 12:16.
This is LBC.
Thanks to their unique boutique spirit, there really is nothing quite like a Saga River cruise. There are the elegantly designed Spirit ships, the all-inclusive dining, and of course Saga's carefully selected excursions. They'll even drive you to and from the airport with their nationwide chauffeur service. And how long now, Charles?
Half an hour.
Marvellous. Search Saga River Cruises. Experience is everything. 2026 season on sale now. Chauffeur service available on UK mainland. Full terms apply. Over 50s only.
Make the move to your dream home in Trindon without the nightmare of selling your old one with Homes by Ash. We're running a part exchange scheme at our Bluebell Gardens development in Trindon Village, acting as cash buyers for your existing property, meaning no chains, no estate agency fees, and no stress. You can even stay in your current home whilst we get your new one ready for you. Visit homesbyash.co.uk to book a viewing of our show home. Start a new chapter with Homes by Ash. Subject to valuation and survey.
Ben Kentish on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
12:18 the time. Let's have some calls about parents and the impact that they had on you, whether that was negative or perhaps whether it was a positive one that you'd like to share about your upbringing. 03456 6060 973. Moira is in Newham this morning to kick us off. Hi, Moira.
And then I had my parents they would never talk to me. Very rare they'd ever talk to me. It was just a complete silence. My mother would always have the radio. Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. She'd have the radio on all the time. But in fact, it was LBC. I know that was good. I used to enjoy it. I always enjoyed listening to LBC. But, you know, not all the time. I didn't know. And radio too sometimes. But, you know, but it was annoying for me hearing that radio on all the time.
Because you just wanted your mum to talk to you and show an interest in you.
Exactly. That's right. And even with certain issues, like when I was a child, like growing up, you know, like feminine issues, I won't go into details, but just feminine issues, I wanted her to talk to me about it. I know fair enough it was very embarrassing for her, but, you know, she'd tell me go and get a book. And when I got a book out in the library, there was a big word. I won't say it open publicly, I don't want to cause any embarrassment, but I went to my mother and then she just would refuse to answer, you know, because these books had big words in them that I didn't understand.
Right, so she wasn't support, she just wasn't there for you at all by the sounds of it.
Exactly, and she'd also, like, sadly she had passed away in 1984. It was believed to be cancer, but the death certificate states bronchial pneumonia and septicemia, but I think that she had cancer of the womb.
Right.
But it's
what was
not.
your relationship with her like by that point, as an adult?
I was a child then. I was only 13, sadly, when I lost.
Oh, Maura, I'm so sorry. So you never really had a relationship with your mum?
No, she was very cold. You know, she was a very severe depressive, sadly. I don't think she had ever got over the death of her mother.
Right.
You know, and with the what do you call it? You know, like when a mother gets depressed after giving birth.
Postnatal depression.
That's it. Postnatal depression. And it came as a shock when I found out from a counsellor. She reckons that it continued. That my mother had never recovered.
That would explain, I guess, the sort of withdrawalness.
Yes, exactly. And it had caused problems with communication. Luckily, because I'm talking to you about this, it's easier. But from 2016 onwards, it was very difficult for me to communicate with people.
Right. Do you link those two things? Do you link that to your childhood?
I do, most definitely, because my father would take me out. I know it was lovely out in the beautiful summers of 1983 and, you know, in the summer over the years. Yeah, but we'd sit outside. My dad would sit with me, but for hours and hours we'd sit out in the sun. I know that was lovely, but he would just never talk to me, the exact same as my mother.
So you basically grew up in a home where you were never really taught the skills of basic communication.
Exactly, it was very problematic. I just could never start up a conversation like, say, if I was in a group, I could never start up a conversation like all the others, you see all the others joining in and starting off those conversations.
How has that affected you, do you think, as an adult?
Well, sadly, I am trying to socialise as much as possible. So I go into the cafeteria regularly where I socialise. I go to it's a church cafeteria, though I'm not very religious.
But it's somewhere to meet people.
Exactly, well, it's helping me to have my communication skills.
Good. And that's something you've had to learn as an adult because you never had the opportunity as a child.
No, exactly. And sadly what's happened is I've ended up with holding issues. My parents had never holded, but what had happened was with my mother, she had, you know, this lack of energy in doing the work. Sadly, that has come up back onto me for many years. Whereas my father had always a great work ethic because he was working as a cleaner for the civil service because he had to have that work ethic. You know, and to make matters worse, I was always, I hardly ever ate in them days. Just about it was Friday was the only good day where I'd be eating. You know, and I used to often come home for I would be telling my mother I'm coming home for my school dinners, for my food. She'd say all right, and then when I'd come home, she'd say, I haven't got any food.
It sounds incredibly difficult for a child, a young child as well. How do you feel about your parents now?
It did make me angry for many years, but when after speaking to counsellors and that, and I believe my counselor, when at the time I started to hate my mother, but the counsellors have advised me not to accept that she was a severe depressive. But with my father, he did try to feed me behind my mother's back. He used to try, like on a Saturday, he used to try and take me to the Wimpy Bar and get me fed on a Saturday behind my mother's back. But it wasn't easy because my mother was controlling all the money, going around to drunk people, giving them money.
I'm so sorry. It's an impossibly hard start to life, and I can't begin to imagine how lonely and isolated that must have been for you as a child, and how, of course, that would play out as you in your adult life as well. And good on you for doing what you can to try and sort of get away from the consequences of their actions. And I sense you have a little bit of compassion, or at least a bit of understanding about what might be going on. But it seems to me that anger and hurt are absolutely natural things to feel, given what you went through as a girl. Thank you, Moira, for calling in and sharing your story of the pretty huge impact, by the sounds of it, that your parents had on you, and absolutely understandably, Moira, in you. Thank you. Let's talk Bose in Kensington, in London. Hi.
Hello.
Have I pronounced that right, Bose?
Yes.
Good.
Indeed.
I'm glad I did. What made you call me this morning?
What made me call? I had a different experience with the previous caller, which I really feel bad about. I can imagine.
I feel bad because we want to hear sort of all different perspectives this hour about the impact that people's parents had on them, good and bad. So don't feel bad, please.
My mom had a very positive impact on me. I remember as a child, maybe I was 5, or I can't really remember now. I remember my mom telling me that she didn't go to school. And because she didn't go to school, she wanted to give me something that would take me anywhere I was, and it would help me. And I was just a kid, and I said, what was it? And she said, you're going to go to school. And all I remember in school was my mother putting me in extra class, having private tuition, private things. I was always, when I go to school, after school, I had private tuition. So as a result of that, I was at the top of my class, top of school, very good at school, had, top in math, not math, top in every subject, and then I ended up doing really well. And because of that impacted on me, because I saw that it was the extra effort she put. So when I now have my own children, unfortunately, I forced academics on them and made sure they had private tuition. They went to state school, but they have extra teacher, they have extra lesson for science, English, and everything. So at the end of the day, I was able to steadily pull my children at the top of their class. So they were very academically.
And that all came from your mum, wasn't it? It came from her instilling in you the importance of an education that she hadn't been able to have.
Yeah. So I transferred that to my kid, and now I have a daughter. She has 2 degrees. She's an engineer and lawyer. The other one is a lawyer. Another one had a master's, and I have one who had a first class in mathematics. However, one thing I just wanted to share was I gave private tuition to my children, making sure I am that type of mother. I do homework with them, make sure their homework is correct and everything. But by the time I got to my 4th child, I have 5 children, I think maybe my money had a little bit replenished. So, but my son, this one that didn't have a private extra teacher, extra this, had a first class in mathematics. So I'm just looking back because I just used to be so proud. Oh, I did this for my kids. But for this one, on his own back, he didn't have private teacher. He was just a very hard working.
Sure, but he got that, I'm sure, Bose, from you. He's got the appreciation and the understanding of the value of education from you. And you got it from your mum, and no doubt your children's children will also have that because that's how they were brought up. So that what your mum gave you is going to be passed down generation after generation. That's the power of parenting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Bose, lovely to talk to you. Really, really interesting. Thank you very much indeed for your call. That's Bose in Kensington. Iris says, Ben was born to an ex-prisoner of war and his young bride. I lived in great poverty physically until I was 10. Dad was on the death march, 5.5 stone when released, and watched a third of his camp die on the march. But he was the kindest, most gentle man I ever knew. No bitterness. I spent my life trying to be like him. If I've succeeded even 50%, I will be happy. Mum worked until she was 70, beautiful and loving. Sadly, says Iris, the world is a dimmer place without them. Different story comes in. No name on this. It says, Ben, I can honestly say my parents have totally ruined my life. I was 23 when my dad took his own life, and my mum has never admitted that she was an enormous contributor to why he did what he did. I will never forgive her, but have to carry on while she's still alive. Really, really difficult story there. Thank you to sharing that as well. And Brian says, my mother asked my school to check my 11 plus results in 1975, not because I failed, but because I passed, and she thought I was too stupid. I went on to have a successful life despite of her, but I never liked her and never felt any love. My children and grandchildren don't know her, not because of me, but because of her. Mother's Day means nothing to me, but it does to my children and grandchildren. Thank you, Brian, for that message. More of your calls on parents, yours and the impact they had on you, positive or negative, after the 12:30 news headlines with James Kitchen.
The Justice Secretary has promised record prison expansion with work to build 3 new jails starting this year. It's been warned they're running at 99% capacity and spaces for male inmates in England and Wales will hit 0 by November. A man suspected of a double stabbing has been shot by armed police in Huyton near Liverpool. The suspect has been taken to hospital, as have the man and woman who were assaulted. They're in a serious but stable condition. And Vladimir Putin won't be travelling to Turkey for peace talks with Ukraine, despite calls from Volodymyr Zelensky for him to attend. Ukraine's leader had previously said he would meet the Russian president in person if he agreed. LBC weather heading into a largely dry day with warm sunshine and highs of 21 degrees.
This is LBC.
Do you love the idea of a career with animals, or want to get hands-on with the environment? At Askham Bryan College in Middlesbrough, we've got just the place for you, as you'll study within the beautiful backdrop of Stuart Park, where you can delve into animal management, equine studies, or horticulture and floristry. Whether you're finishing school or looking for a fresh start, come to our open event on June the 21st. Don't miss out. Discover your perfect course today. Search Askham Bryan College, Middlesbrough.
At John Lewis, we believe in a good night's sleep. That's why our bedding goes up to 1600 thread count. Comes in a range of materials including crisp Egyptian cotton, linen you can lounge on, and even 100% silk. Perfect for napping, snoozing, or just resting your eyes. Let bed become your favourite destination. John Lewis, never knowingly undersold on quality, service and price. Price promise matched against 25 retailers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
This is LBC. Message Ben Kentish on WhatsApp now on 0345 6060 973.
Here's Luke on WhatsApp. Ben, my parents divorced when I was 8. I moved in with my dad, who was a heroin addict. My mum moved up north. I wasn't fed or clothed by my dad. I was always surrounded by his mates. Thank God for my grandparents, who basically brought me up, or I would have had a very different role. I have worked since 11 to provide for myself, left school at 14 to work full-time, moved out at 17 and have never looked back. I'm 35 now with a wife and 3 beautiful children who I adore, and I still work 7 to 13 days at a time to make sure they have a warm house to live in and a full fridge. My grandparents, who are sadly no longer here, probably saved me from a very sad life indeed. That's Luke. Just powerful this conversation. Powerful on 2 levels. Powerful about the enormous positive impact that parents can have, as in Bose's case, but also, or Luke, 060 at 973. Just before I come back to your calls on this, let's talk about somebody else who's got insight and expertise about that. Anna Mather is a physiotherapist specialising in parenting, author of How to Raise a Happier Mother. Anna, good to talk to you this morning. I mean, in a way, it's not a great surprise that children who receive more love from their mums grow into young adults who are generally happier, kinder, more creative themselves. Something that most people, I suspect, intuitively understand, but now we've got proof of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so affirming, isn't it? We feel it. We feel warmth from other people, and we know the impact that it has on us. So it feels quite instinctive to want to nurture that for our kids. So it's great to have that backed up.
What's the sort of link between those things, in your view? The link between maternal kind of emotional or availability, I guess is the word, and something like creativity, because you might think, yes, okay, mum's affectionate, child gets more confident, for example, but creativity is a sort of interesting element.
It is, isn't it? And I think, in truth, we know that to be creative means to feel at ease. Like we can only really just enjoy being in the moment and accessing that part of ourselves, which is quite therapeutic when we feel safe. So children need psychological safety to be able to explore, to take risks, and to imagine freely. And affection actually creates that internal sense of security that enables this to happen. So it's kind of a breeding ground for safety and creativity. So there is a strong link, but yeah, it's not really obvious.
And I mean, it's hard because it's not for something that's not a choice. There are parents who are just naturally not the most affectionate. They love their children as much as anybody else, but maybe they're just not the most kind of, tactile or most emotionally upfront. What do you say to parents in that category?
I think it's really hard. Children in the UK are often really caught between kind of intense social comparison online. We've got academic pressure at school. We're overstretched family systems. Many families are under-resourced. Parents are stressed and children are absorbing that stress. So we've got so many external pressures that actually don't make it easy for us to relax into those moments of connection with our kids. So I think it's so easy to jump to that place of feeling guilty and blaming ourselves when actually, the system and life and the speed of life that we live at and the things that we're juggling do make it really challenging. So it's about trying to be a little bit more intentional about some of those opportunities to connect.
And just being a bit more conscious about the child's need for that. It's not enough to just sort of necessarily, show love in certain ways. Is that warmth and affection that kids need too?
Yeah, and I've got 3 kids and I'm a working mum, so I'm living this out, and there are so many things to do. And it's in the moments of actually recognising when my 3 kids are sitting on the sofa after dinner and I am buzzing around the kitchen and I might be answering a couple of emails, and there is an invitation there, there's a choice there that I can drop what I'm doing for 5 minutes and go and sit with them and laugh with them and connect with them. And I think sometimes we pressure ourselves to do everything so brilliantly, but actually letting these really small, consistent moments of connection build that relationship, a gentle tone in how you're talking to each other, soft eye contact, looking up for whatever you're doing, remembering what matters to them, just leaning in and joining them in the moment and just putting everything else aside.
Makes me sort of think about how big a barrier to all of that smartphones are, social media.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, and to be honest, I've really battled with this because so much of my work is on my phone, and I found this amazing app that basically blocks things. So I cannot go on certain apps at certain times of the day, and I would say it's recognizing that it's really hard to place these boundaries because life is pulling us in all directions. So thinking, what can I actually do to place a bigger boundary there that is harder for me to cross? So even if it's putting your phone or your laptop in a drawer somewhere so that it becomes more intentional and you're putting more boundaries there. But I think it's also thinking what's getting in the way of me slowing down? Is it perfectionism? Is it just trying to keep everyone happy? And might I be trying to place such a high standard on doing everything well that I'm actually not engaging in those little opportunities that do arise to connect with my kids and with them?
And just a word out, terms of their own upbringing. Perhaps it was cold, perhaps it was a sort of quite a loveless household or so on. Just a word on people in that situation. You might say, well, I'm sort of permanently kind of damaged in some way as a result of that.
Yeah, do you know what? It's never too late to bring more affection into how we parent. And the best thing about that is we start giving it to our kids. We actually start giving it to ourselves a little bit more. So I'm a therapist, and so much of what I do is helping clients start finding a different way to speak to themselves as well, to find a bit more affection and gentleness and kindness for themselves, because often we find that what comes out of us is what's already in us. So it's not only actually trying to be a little bit more gentle and affectionate with our children, it's actually, if we start doing that for ourselves, it will come out of us so much more easily, because often how we've been parenting, it really shapes our internal dialogue, right? If we've been parented in a way that is, get over that, it's fine, don't worry about it, sort yourself out, then actually often that's the dialogue that we have in our minds when we're going through a challenging time. We just want a bit of comfort, we want some encouragement. So actually, as we're trying to connect a little bit more and be a bit more gentle, we're shifting both our internal narrative, but also we're giving our children a chance to have a different kind of internal chatter that we've had, maybe more cheerleading and kind and encouraging of rest and support than criticism and sometimes even bullying our internal dialogue can be. So this is really powerful, like generational changing stuff. It's amazing. I'm glad it's being spoken about.
Anna, mate, thank you very much indeed. Anna is a physiotherapist specialising in psychotherapist, specialising in parenting and author of How to Raise a Happier Mother. 12:41 time, your course coming in on the impact that your parents had on you, given how they treated you as a child and the effect that had on you as an adult. Let's talk to Brian this morning in Edinburgh. Brian, good to have you with us. Morning. Yeah, I'm all right, Brian.
Before I actually start, if I get upset, sorry, I apologise, but
Brian, please don't apologise. Please don't apologise.
I'll start off. I was born in 1958, right? My mum was 44, my dad was 42, right? So we had maybe a 10-year-old brother, a 10-year-old brother, and a sister who's 20. She moved over this Skype last year. She'll be 67 in October, and my brother will be 77, and my other brother died in a car accident, and my sister would have been 87, but she died last year. Anyway, we had moved house in 1965. I was 6 and a half, and because my two brothers were still staying with us, some of the rooms will get decorated, and my dad was a chef, so he'd come and home at 2 o'clock in the morning. So instead of disturbing me and my mum, I shared the bed with my mum. I think I was there for about big fight. The 5th day, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, I heard my mum choking. Unbeknownst to me, it's death rattle, and I'm saying, Mum, what's wrong? And then no more. And then my brother came in the morning and said, Mum, or Ma, as you say in Scotland, have you got any money for the bus? Then he realised if he shook her hand and took her pulse. And he's 10-year-old, she was dead. All hell broke loose. And nobody told me what had happened. I thought she just died in her sleep. And then eventually told me when I was about maybe 8 years old. And then from 8 years old to about 14, I blamed myself because I didn't do anything about it. I got no counselling at all. My schoolwork really suffered, and then subsequently I eventually get A's and B's when I was at secondary school. I got badly bullied. Badly bullied. Like these skinny ones with Harry Potter specs used to get beaten up nearly every week. So eventually, when I left school, I went to the gym, built myself up, did karate lessons, and the expression is, I'm a type of person that doesn't get stand kicked in the face. My dad was absolutely brilliant. He could knock me and forget. I'm thinking about my dad. He's just the nicest man ever.
So he raised you.
Yeah, I got raised, and I had aunts and uncles, so I got shifted from pillar to post. But the thing is, I'm 66. I've got over it, but I still think about my dad. And
I can hear the pain about your mum is still with you.
One New Year, my brother, one of my brothers actually sadly died in a climbing accident. And we were talking, and I said I was a mistake, and my sister went mental at me, gave me a big cuddle, and she says, "You weren't a mistake. You weren't planned." And then she also said, "Your mum absolutely adored you, she loved you." And I said to her, "Sister, well, my mum loved me. Why did she go away?" So it's only just occasionally that I'm really upset. But the thing is, I've had a brilliant life. I've got two lovely kids.
The pain's still there because that 6-year-old is still in you.
And I've got an 8-year-old grandson. And if I thought my grandson was getting bullied, oh my God, it wouldn't be me, so it would be my daughter, because she's feisty like me. And the best job that I got, actually, my dad said to me, don't go into retail, don't go into catering, and don't go into retail. And I got a job with, not John Menzies, John Mingus. And that was the best thing for me, because it got me up my shell. Because when you work in retail, you have to speak to people, and that was
what you needed at that point in time.
I did, and it got me in my shell, because honestly, I wouldn't say boot a ghost. It ruined my, not my upbringing, but I just detest bullies, absolutely. And sometimes you find that bullies are actually getting bullied themselves.
Yeah, often. It's always about their issues.
So anyway, but I've been listening to some other calls and some of the things that people go through, and I always say, my dad always said to me, don't lie, because liars always get found out. What goes around comes around. And when you get up in the morning, be kind. Because I remember when Caroline Flack died, I think her motto was, if you're going to do anything in life, be kind.
And a lot of people repeated that after, and it didn't last very long.
Yeah, I remember, what's his name, got a t-shirt made up, Keith Lemon got made up, and he got...
I mean, it's advice we should all live by. Just be kind. You never know what someone's going through. You never know what's in their mind. Treat each other as if, you know, how we would want to be treated. Be kind. Oh, Brian, I'm so sorry. What an awful start to your life, and amazing that you've managed to make so much of yourself. But I can hear that the pain's still there. I can hear that it never leaves you.
It does. But then again, it will never leave me. But I think what would have been like if my mum had stayed? She must have been. Oh, by the way, she was diagnosed with being bipolar, and there was a massive dose of lithium she took.
There was a what? Sorry.
A massive dose of lithium.
Right.
It's safe for depression.
Right.
She was manic depressive, and I suffer from. My sister suffered from it. My niece suffers from it, and I suffer from stress, anxiety, and depression.
Oh, Brian, I'm really sorry. And you know, it's not been easy for you in childhood and adulthood, but as you say, you've got on, you've made some of yourself, you've raised a family, and thank you for calling in and sharing a story about what happened. I just can't comprehend 6-year-old Brian. Horrible. Awful thing to go through. Brian, thank you. I'm really sorry that you did have to go through that. Very, very much. Of course you did. Thank you. Dr. Elizabeth in Kensington in just time 12:06.
Coming up at 1 on LBC, Richard Spur.
A minimum of £3.4 billion will need to meet the ever-growing need for social care. But what are your experiences of it? Is the social care system in Britain fit for purpose?
Richard Spur on LBC.
It's the summer of loving, long days, warm nights, and all things that sizzle. Like M&S best ever cherrywood smoked pork shoulder posh dogs, 100% British beef smashed burgers, and hot and smoky Nduja king prawn skewers. Stop it, M&S. You'll have to pry me away from the barbecue with a spatula. This is not just food. This is summer loving M&S food. Subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
Do you love the idea of a career with animals, or want to get hands-on with the environment? At Askham Bryan College in Middlesbrough, we've got just the place for you, as you'll study within the beautiful backdrop of Stuart Park, where you can delve into animal management, equine studies, or horticulture and floristry. Whether you're finishing school or looking for a fresh start, come to our open event on June the 21st. Don't miss out. Discover your perfect course today. Search Askham Bryan College, Middlesbrough.
Hayes Travelers is helping people find their perfect holiday for over 40 years, and there's a reason their customers keep coming back. They are at the heart of the communities they serve. No hassle, no stress, just expert advice from people who live and breathe travel.
With a huge choice of late deals, handy local flights and free child places, it's time to get your summer holiday sorted at Hayes Travel. Visit your local branch today. At all protected.
Ben Kentish on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
12:49 the time. Listen to Ben Kentish here on LBC. Just before we talk more about parents and the impact that yours had on your life, just want to look at the very latest news concerning the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric Menendez, who were the subject of a major and very very widely watched Netflix drama called The Menendez Brothers. If you're not familiar with the case, they were convicted of killing their parents in 1989. They claimed in self-defense after years of sexual and physical abuse. The court rejected that and said, no, this was premeditated murder because they wanted their parents' money. News today that the two Menendez brothers might now be eligible to be released from prison. They might be eligible for parole. Michael Hiltzig joins us, American columnist for the Los Angeles Times. Michael, good to have you with us. What's changed in this case? Morning.
Well, one thing that's changed is that it's the passage of time. But basically, a new judge has resentenced the brothers to a sentence that allows them to be eligible for parole. And originally, they were sentenced to life in prison without parole. So that's now the difference.
And obviously the Netflix blockbuster drama helps, but what is it about this case and this killing that has sort of captured people's attention so much, do you think?
Well, the killing happened, and then the trials happened at a time when certainly people in Los Angeles, and I think throughout the country and maybe the world, were fascinated by these very bloody murder cases. O.J. Simpson's trial had just ended around the time that the Menendez brothers' second trial was about to begin in 1995. So we were sort of infused with fascination with these grisly murder cases.
And obviously there was a big, huge legal dispute, and a dispute in sort of public opinion too, about whether they were guilty of murder or whether this was somehow self-defense.
Well, that's right. Their defense was that their father had been abusive, that had sexually abused the younger brother, Lyle, for years, and had abused others. And their mother was basically sort of a prisoner of their father, and they claimed that they wanted to put them both out of their misery. The prosecution said that really wasn't the case. What they were after were their parents, were their inheritances. They wanted them early, and that was somewhat supported by the fact that after these killings, the boys went on a huge buying spree. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on luxury. So you had to believe one thing or the other. They were two inconsistent theories, and I think that's part of the fascination as well.
Michael, thank you very much indeed for that update. Michael Hiltzig, American columnist for the LA Times since 1999, on the news that the Menendez brothers, subject of that major Netflix documentary, might now be eligible for release, or parole at least, after a judge resentenced them. 12:52 the time. Let's come back to your calls, our conversation about the impact that your parents had on you. How did they treat you as a child, and how did that affect the adult that you have become and the life that you have had? To Kensington this morning. And Elizabeth, hello.
Hello, Ben.
Oh, hey.
Oh, this is I love radio. I love LBC and this program. I love your show, and this program is just such a delight.
That's
and so interesting. As to my experience with my parents, my mother was the loveliest person in the world. And such a loving person, and I just feel so fortunate that I had her for a mother. And to this day, I pray for both my mother and my father, who both have passed away. I finally learned, I sort of worked out how to pray for people who have died, as far, I've always prayed for people who are alive. But anyway, that I guess is a bit beside the point.
So your mother was... Yeah, sorry, go on, Elizabeth, your father.
Yeah. I felt with him that a lot of things he said to me were slams. And these happened quite often, so that I couldn't really, at that time, during most of my life, feel as though I loved him.
Right.
But this is interesting. I had no doubt that he loved me.
Right.
And, but then, not that long ago, it's nice to work out psychological states of being when you're 80, which I am. I thought to myself, well, why do I harbor these negative thoughts? Why don't I focus on the things he said that were good and that made me, that were a kind of bond of love? And also, what could I have said as a child, to just say something about this to him, because I never brought this up with him. And in my family, it was childhood family, it was sort of the done thing to sweep under the carpet things that weren't right. And if I had said anything like that to my father, it's very possible he would have laughed in my face, or or made fun of me as a weakling, something like that.
When you say slams, Elizabeth, you mean he put you down a lot?
Yeah, well, like one time he actually said to me, "You don't get along very well with boys."
Gosh.
Which to a teenage girl, you might as well tell them to jump off a bridge.
Well, that's pretty damaging as a girl to your self-confidence, I would imagine.
No, it didn't really, but I
Good.
just I got hysterical from that, though, because just the feeling of my father saying something so unpleasant.
Of course. How do you feel about him now? You say you sort of went through that process of slightly, almost reevaluating your kind of perception of him.
Yes. Why should, what, as I forget exactly what I've mentioned to you already, but what could I have said that, to try and work this out? He was a very reasonable person, so he might have taken that into consideration. And also, he, it's, excuse me, I lost my train of thought for just a moment, but I'll come back.
Fine, don't worry. I was just asking you about the sort of how you feel about your dad now.
Well, I kind of recently just said, well, why should I focus on the negative? Why don't I try to work out what I could have said? And why don't I make a great point of remembering the positive things? And so, may I quickly tell you there was one moment with my father that was the most positive moment of my whole life with him. It won't take long. And that is that by that time I'd gone to university. And at university, a somewhat elderly man who taught an art course that I took part in invited me to his and his wife's apartment for tea. But then when I got to his apartment, and he let me in, he began to come on to me. And, he did.
And what did your dad intervene somehow?
Well, wait. But this man did take, when I didn't particularly want this to happen, and it didn't get far at all. He did take no. The man did take no for an answer. Okay, end of. Matter of fact, he took some rather nice photographs of me while I was there.
And your dad, how did your dad respond?
But then, when I came home from university, one evening, my father and I were downstairs, and my father just looked, he was a nice-looking man, and he looked so nice in wearing a blue Oxford shirt that I told him about this. And I just said to him, Dad, you look so nice. Let me tell you something that happened at university.
How did he respond?
And I told him this. And my father said, my father asked how old this man was. I said, I thought probably about 70.
And what did he say?
And my father said, And my father laughed and said, "A man my age trying to warm up to a college girl? That sounds a bit optimistic."
Elizabeth, thank you very much indeed for the call. Really appreciate it, and lovely to talk to you this morning. And so that's an interesting angle as well. We sort of talked about it as if parents could be all bad or all good, whereas Elizabeth's saying there are issues with Dad, but Mum was wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. This comes in from Matt in High Wycombe. Some advice for any young people out there who suffered through bad parenting. Realise it was not your fault. Doing this will help with your confidence and the inferiority complex you may have. Forgive them, because harbouring hate will only damage you. It takes time to do these things, but it will help. Catherine says, actually, I'm not going to read that because it says please don't say my name, so apologies to Catherine. And this comes in that says, I lived with my mother-in-law for many years, and over time I realised that she didn't show emotion, never spoke to her children with care and love, and I never saw her hug them, even though I knew she did love them. The sad part is I now look at my husband and can see that he too struggles to connect and can't even hug his children, as I believe not getting that contact from his mother, he never learnt to show affection to our children. Again, another example of the way that parenting passes down through the generations, the positives and also the negatives. Really interesting hour. Thank you very much indeed. I just want to finish on this from George. If you're still listening, Brian, this is George in Northampton. Ben, thank you so much for having that wonderful man, Brian, on your show earlier. His story was absolutely heartbreaking, but it was really beautiful to listen to such a strong man open up in that way. I wish him well, and I absolutely echo that. As Brian, I'm sure everybody listening to your call does. Thank you, George, for texting. And that's it from me for this morning. Thank you, as always, for your company. Today's show on Catch Up on Global Play. It's also on the brand new LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news and opinion. Put your news category